Hey Clashers, how strong are Electro Dragons right now? I mean, they received the small buff in the last update, but the question is, how strong are they actually compared to, for example, Super Dragons? I have joined up with Julian again, who is always the first person I'm talking to when it's coming down to Electro Dragons or Super Dragons, because he's using that in Legends, both armies, so you can really nicely compare that. So let's dive into some attacks. At the end of the video, we're going to find a conclusion how strong Electro Dragons actually are after the last balance update. And we're starting things off with the classic box base. I mean, those bases are everywhere by now. It's pretty crazy. But the cool thing about the Electro Dragons by now is that everyone is trying to defend the Super Dragons with like the spacing and everything. And this is where Electro Dragons might have the chance of the comeback, might have the chance of maybe overshining the Super Dragons again. We're going to come to a conclusion at the end of this video, no problem. The link for the strategy is going to be obviously down below in the description, if I'm not forgetting it again, but otherwise it should be down below in the description. Huge thank you obviously already for Julian for sharing all of those replays, because trust me, it probably looks like when I'm doing Electro Dragons, it probably looks like someone who never ever did Lalo would do Lalo. This is like how you would compare it. It's my E-Dragon attacks are not pretty. Like, trust me, it is not looking good. Either way, let's now get back to the base. This base is using 2 single Inferno Towers, which is trying to somehow defend versus those really beefy air troops, like the Super Dragons, like Electro Dragons, things like that. On the other side, though, to make things like P.E.K.K.A. Smash and other things a little bit weaker again, he's using the ground expos, which then again is like good and bad at the same time for facing Electro Dragons, for example. You can see as well in this base, he took down the entire core, and this is like the same idea with every single dragon strategy. You want to take down the core, you want to take down the expos and the heroes. Those are your main targets, your main goals, to actually achieve that your heroes can take down the rest of the base. And that's exactly happening on this base. Like, there is nothing being able to take down those heroes. There's even the king ability left. He can swag the freeze in the core, and this means it is going to be a 3-star with the swag freeze and swag king ability. So the first attack already is showing that the Electro Dragons for sure had a huge buff with the couple of like with the speed, because it is actually having a way bigger impact than you might think. Because improving or like increasing actually the movement speed of a troop is the equal to really boosting the DPS, because, or like to some regard, because moving faster means you can channel your next attack quicker as an Electro Dragon, which then again means it's less damage on the Electro Dragons, which means they have in some way more HP. So with just this one stat of the movement speed, you're increasing a lot of other stats indirectly. And that's kind of the scary thing about movement speed when you're talking about troops or games in general. So movement speed is always a stat which is really not to be underestimated, because it's having so much impact on everything else happening during the attack. Either way, now let's see what he's doing on this one. He's attacking someone from GS, who's like familiar, really good clan, so the base shouldn't be too bad. It's an anti-3-star base, and actually I think I saw this base already 1 or 2 times, so it's not a bad base at all. Might be even a Clash Worlds base, I'm not sure, but I've for sure seen this base already at some point. So he's even facing a super mini clan castle, where for example like the Lava Hound would have been completely useless. So he's already facing a clan castle, which is more annoying than usual. He's having his heroes walking into the tunnel. This is something which I really think is cool, because you're so flexible actually with those attacks, which I feel like I never really would consider that at all, because you could use the slammer like he did and then have the tunnel on the back end, which always looks risky. But if you have this clear pattern for your heroes, this clear pathing, it is actually pretty crazy how strong this could be. Now, as well, one thing which you might have noticed on this base as well, a lot of building deployments were to counter, for example, the Super Dragons. You always see this one gap in between of the buildings. This one gap in between of buildings means that Super Dragons are not getting as much value, because that's the only area where they can splash damage. So as long as buildings are touching each other, then the splash of the Super Dragons is coming into place. Otherwise, it's not happening. For Electro Dragons, though, you need a gap of 2 tiles. So it's like a different base building style, I want to say, for countering this troop. So you cannot counter both troops at the same time, and due to Super Dragons being so strong, this is boosting indirectly Electro Dragons again, because I mean, everyone is building against that, so Electro Dragons are going to benefit from having a different attack animation than Super Dragons, for example. But let's see how the strategy is now working against the base with 2 RX bows, and in addition to that, 3 single Inferno Towers, which is probably the worst nightmare for those dragons, especially this base. Take a look at this base. This is separate. Everything is like separate by 1 tile. For Super Dragons, like even all of those buildings are separate. There's like one like touching each other. Otherwise, there's always the building separate, which means Super Dragons probably on this base would have a really rough time, especially with those core air defenses. But Electro Dragons should go through the space really easily if he's getting this blimp for the tunnel to work. And you can see he's doing that really most of the time, using this blimp to get down the tunnel, especially with this Dragon Rider. It's really hard to bait that. And you can see as well, just take a look at those chains in the core. Take a look at those chains. This air defense behind the Eagle never really had a chance. I think 2 shots from this air defense were coming out, and that's it. It's kind of crazy that the defense, which is supposed to counter a specific troop, is actually not doing it that much. So yeah, it's really crazy. We have now the Royal Champion coming from the bottom side, and again, the core has been taken down. The main goal of the Electro Dragons is achieved. They did their job, and at this point, the heroes now have to take over. And with the Royal Champion ability, with the King ability, he should be able to do that without any problems. There's a couple of more Black Knights versus the Electro Dragons, but at this point, they are not the main threat. They are not the main troop to at this point carry the attack. No, at this point it's the heroes. It's the heroes who are who have to take over at the end of the day, and that's exactly what is happening on this base. So really nicely done again from Yuyan. So I think talking over with the last attack, I think we should now come to the conclusion: how strong are Electro Dragons compared to the other dragon attacks? Are they better? Are they worse? What exactly is going on if you compare those dragons inside this dragon category, I would call it? Let's see. And I have asked Julian what exactly he thinks, because he played both. He played Super Dragons, he played Electro Dragons, so he knows how to compare them. And just a really small touch again, like this compartment right here, with nothing touching each other, it's really annoying to face with, for example, Super Dragons. On the other side, with Electro Dragons, it's insanely easy. It's like pretty much a gift at this point. But now let's get back to the point. So what Yuyan said is, Electro Dragons, you really notice that buff. And as I said, movement speed is always in games is like a stat which is really important to consider and is having a lot of impact. And you can really notice the buff for the Electro Dragons. On the other side, though, the big problem for Electro Dragons is that they are getting compared to one of the most strongest, like the strongest troop in a long time in Clash of Clans, the Super Dragons. And that's their problem. I mean, on their own, they're really strong. You can 3-star a lot of bases, as you're seeing right now from Yuyan. He's done all of those 3-stars in just 1 day, so he's looking really good with that. But on the other side, Super Dragons could do probably the same thing as well, even though people are bidding against that. So what exactly is the conclusion? The conclusion is Electro Dragons are viable, they're really strong again, but if you are more looking for a consistent dragon strategy, which is the best strategy right now, or like best dragon strategy right now in the game, it's more likely to go with the Super Dragons. That's what he said. So I think that's really good words to finish off this video. As I've said earlier in the video, if you're looking for the strategy link, like the exact armor composition which Yuyan is using, it's down below in the description. Huge thank you again for him, like sharing those replays, sharing his opinion. Thank you so much for that, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys back tomorrow for the next one. Until then, see ya and bye bye.